Welcome to the Audio Barnyard. And of course, I'm Don Barnes with Donnie Barnes. And today we're talking with an amazing voiceover artist, great guy, just absolutely humble and inspiring, named Eli Harris. And Eli's had a significant on-screen acting career. And today he is just smoking it in the voiceover world. Here's a couple of quick examples of some of his work in the past.
Experience luxury performance that takes the crown. Presenting the all-new Lexus LS 500. Long live the king.
On a historic weekend for the LFA in Brazil, which first saw the promotion's international debut.
If something doesn't scare us, if something doesn't challenge us, it doesn't change us.
The fight for the perfect reward starts with fire. A slow-roasted inferno of dark malts, united.
Now, while Eli's had significant on-screen acting career, today he's just highly focused on voiceover work and animation and promo spots for a huge number of corporate clients all around the world. So today we're humbled and an honor to have Eli sharing insights, advice, and inspiration. So I hope you stay for the complete ride because he sprinkles in just nuggets all throughout this discussion, and I'm really happy that you're along for this hayride.
Well, Eli, it's super cool to have you on, and I just want to start with a little bit about your background, because I know you started acting and performing at a pretty young age. So tell us a bit about your early experience, either behind a microphone or on a stage, or sometimes both.
Hey, it's good to be on y'all, to talk with you guys. Especially, Don, you've helped me out in some situations. I had crazy situations with my Studio One, and you helped me out. So I'm glad to be here with both of you guys. Donnie, you're very accomplished yourself.
Thank you.
I have ADHD, and my parents got me involved with martial arts, and they got me involved with acting to kind of help balance me out. So I was always running around the house acting out things, whether it was stuff that I saw on TV or see other people do. And my mom thought it'd be a great idea to get me involved in the performing arts. And so where I came from, there was a theater called the Cherry Tree Players. And so that's where my acting started, is with the Cherry Tree Players.
I have a question. How old were you-ish?
6, 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, around that age. I was a live wire at an early age.
So were you doing it? Did you keep doing that for the next 5 years, 10 years, community theater type
I
thing?
did. So
Yeah.
I did theater in elementary school. I would do like the little talent shows and plays that we had. I remember doing King George. And then middle school, I didn't do it as much. I guess it wasn't as popular. And then I got a little bit more into video games, comics, things like that. And then in high school, I did do it again a little bit.
And I know that you went into the military for a little while there. Tell us a little about that experience and how it maybe helps you now. Did it instill a certain work ethic in you? Did it give you other tools that you've used in the rest of your career since then?
Yeah, I would say I've always been a determined individual. You know, whatever I've put my mind to, I do. But being in the military helped me to see things, I guess, on a bit broader spectrum. There's definitely a level of discipline that I didn't have before going in. And part of me going in is, just certain situations I was involved in, I wanted to get away from. And then I also just wanted to, see the world and just experience things. So, yeah, I would say being in the military definitely helped me with some disciplinary things. Um, yeah, I would definitely say that. And then also, going into other countries, experiencing other cultures and seeing things that I otherwise wouldn't have seen had I just stayed stateside.
And when you got out of the military, your bio on your website says that you decided to get back into performing after your mother passed away.
Mhm.
Tell us a bit about that decision and that realization that this was something you needed to come back to and become more serious about at a professional level.
Yeah, and that part of me never left, I guess. It's
Mhm.
just that, when you get older, you're told to work. to do your 9 to 5 because you got bills to pay. And, you know, I think that I came back to the realization of needing the performing in my life, uh, just because I found I wasn't really happy with just doing my 9 to 5 work. Of course, I still played my video games and still did other things, but I still felt like something was missing. Um, and, my mother's passing did have a lot to do with that, and it kind of brought some things back, to me. Um, and during that period, I had met my wife, which we've been married now 22 years. We've been together a little bit over 23, but we've been married. We just celebrated our 22-year wedding anniversary. And I remember sitting down with my wife and talking to her about it. And, she was all for it, thankfully, because it's hard to do what we do and not have the support of our spouse or the ones that we're with. And, so yeah, I decided to get back into it because I felt there was a part of me that was missing.
Yeah, and I know you got to appear in lots of cool shows. You were on Law and Order briefly, I think, about 20 years ago. And
Yeah.
wow, is that an interesting memory? Is there a story behind that?
I have stories for all the shows that I've been
Yeah.
on, real interesting stories. Some are pretty lengthy, and I don't know if I really want to get into all of them.
Yeah.
I think probably one of the more interesting stories would be doing the Nanny Diaries with Alicia Keys. That one was an interesting one. I was I remember my agent had called me one particular weekend, and agents, they never call you on the weekend for anything. But she had told me that there's this movie that they were holding auditions for in Upper Manhattan on a Sunday. And I'm like, wow, that's weird. We usually don't do auditions and stuff. And she was explaining to me, well, they're filming this movie called The Nanny Diaries, starring Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, and Alicia Keys. And so the way they did this particular audition process was a meet and greet. So those of us who were, it was about 6 of us. Those of us who was up for the role for Alicia Keys, we had to meet and greet her. So that was the audition, was meeting her and her seeing the personality and whether if you have chemistry or not. And she picked me for the part. There were some talented people there. There were some guys there, obviously, that were tall, model-looking dudes, and just different people. But she chose me, so I thought that was a real interesting time in my life because I definitely got to brag to my friends, like, "Yo, I'm playing Alicia Keys' boyfriend in a movie." You know what I'm saying? Like, who wouldn't want to play Alicia Keys' boyfriend? And guys, she was such a sweet girl next door, like super dope. Like she made me feel really comfortable. And I'm not a person that gets starstruck because I've worked with a lot of people, but it's freaking Alicia Keys. you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So, how did you begin to get more voiceover work? How did that part of your career begin to take off, even as you were doing the on camera acting as well?
So, here's what's crazy. I was going through my hard drive the other day, cleaning up some stuff because I have like a bunch of old hard drives from my old computer, and I was trying to go through files and whatnot. I didn't start doing voiceover really until 2019. I did
Wow.
ADR sessions, of course, for TV shows, and we would have to go into the studio and overlay our voice over over our parts. So I don't really consider ADR voiceover, but I did find a file from back like 2010 where someone had sent me some auditions for like Cricket Wireless or something. And I'm like, I don't remember doing this. But, I listened to it and I'm like, Jesus, I was awful. Like, gee, like listening to it, I'm like, my God, like, no wonder I didn't really get anywhere with this because it just sounded so flat and uninspiring. And um, so those projects, when I looked at the files, I remember that got sent to me by someone who thought I should look into doing voice work. But at that time, I was so consumed with doing on camera that I really didn't think much of it. Even though VO is something that I was also interested in, I was just more focused on the on camera part of the career. So it wasn't really until 2019, I kind of fell back on the on camera acting. Um, and with me being a huge gamer, I'm also into anime. I'm like, man, I would love to voice some of this stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because
Mm.
it's a totally different energy. And I get asked this all the time, like, what do you like better? On camera acting or voiceover? And it's like I can't say I like one more than the other because they both give me a different type of energy. Like on camera, I played a drug dealer, I played a detective, I've played, so many array of characters to where it's like, who wouldn't want to act that stuff out physically? But then in VO, man, I get behind this microphone. Most of the time, all I have to worry about people staring at me. So I can really get into my mode and do like just character voices or just really go over the top. So it's a different creative energy. But yeah, I didn't really get into VO full time until 2019.
So you're just a babe in terms of VO. I mean, so this is why we have you here because you've done incredible things in such a short period of time. But then we find out, okay, you have an interesting backstory. Can you explain to people that don't know what ADR is, what that's about, just real quickly?
Sure. ADR is basically when you're on set and you record it, they have the boom mics and they have everything on set, but of course it's still going to pick up all the outside ambiance, noise, and everything. So ADR is when they have you go into a studio and redo your dialogue. So you have to, it's almost like dubbing, which everybody that does VO knows about dubbing because of animation and stuff. It's almost like that. You sit there and you watch your scene, whatever scene it is that you're doing, but then you have to overlay your vocals with your mouth movements. And
Okay.
it has to match to the T, you know. And it may sound like it's simple, but it's tricky because you also have to perform while you're doing it. So I can't just look at my mouth movements and repeat my dialogue. I have to actually be in character and do that,
Right.
you know. And so it's a little difficult because you have to be spot on with your mouth and carry the same emotion and same performance that you did when you were on set doing it.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And so, having just come to voiceover a few years ago now, the acting skills you already had because you've been working on those for so many decades, so that part makes sense. The other part of voiceover, though, of course, that a lot of people neglect or don't know where to even start with is the business side, right? How do I actually get work? How do I market myself? What were some things that you feel have allowed you to have the kind of success you've had, the kind of business that you've been able to build over the last several years since you did get into it?
The performance part of it still actually took a little bit of work. There were some things, when I came into VO that I thought I could just rush in and do, like with doing conversational pieces.
Mm.
That was the biggest struggle for me. Like, and I'm like, why is this so freaking difficult to do a conversational piece? We don't listen to ourselves all the time, so we don't know how we really sound to other people. Um, those are some things I actually had to work on. Um, Same thing when it comes to the animation and video game stuff. Like the video game stuff was natural for me, but animation was difficult. It's entirely different. So some of the performance pieces, it took work, it took some training. As far as my business model, to be honest, looking at people like you guys, like I would look at what you guys were doing. I would look at other people who were where I aspire to be, like the Anthony Picas and Dave Fennoys, and there's different people that I looked at to see how exactly are they promoting themselves. What are these guys doing that has them in the upper echelon of this? How can I get there? And of course, I would message you. I've messaged your dad, to get some insight on things. I think oftentimes people, I don't know whether they're not humble enough to do it or they have so much pride to the point where they don't feel like they can ask because it would be like almost beneath them. But, that's what I did. And so I basically watched what a lot of you guys were doing and structured myself after that.
Yeah, that's really cool. How I know that you use Studio One and I think you use RX in your
Mhm.
recording process. Tell us a little bit about your setup and how it helps you streamline and be efficient as you go through your day with all the clients and all the work that you have now on a daily basis.
Studio One to me is probably it's like the easiest software. And I have, Adobe Audition, and, I have Reaper, and I have pretty much Pro Tools. I have a lot of stuff on here. Studio One just seems to be the simplest to me. I love the interface of it, the layout. Um, it's easy to coordinate as far as being able to set up my colors from my tracks. Um, I don't know all the technicalities like you two do when it comes to Studio One, but it's just that it's so user friendly for me. Um, when I make mistakes, it's easier for me to go back and correct them without having to go through a bunch of hoops for it. Being able to mix down, and your dad taught me a couple of tricks when it comes to that. Uh, it's to me, it's just such a user friendly program.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to talk about, so one of the things that I hear you saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but so please correct me, please set me straight. But I'm also hearing that because of your background and your training, you've always gone out and got some sort of mentors, or you're not afraid to stand on the shoulders of other people, which is, in my opinion, the best way to learn, and what musicians do. And almost all great actors, they've studied with some acting coach. They don't just go do it 100% on their own. They find the people they like, they study them. Sounds to me like you've been doing some of that your whole life. Is that close?
No, that's very accurate. I was talking to one of my friends, Kwame Patterson, who's a real popular, well-known actor, and we were talking about Samuel L. Jackson and Denzel Washington. And one of the things that he said to me was, Denzel still, to this day, when he goes on set, has coaches with him. And I didn't know that because, we're
Wow.
talking Denzel freaking Washington.
Yeah,
But
right.
Denzel never goes anywhere on any of his projects without his coach, without his acting coach. And his acting coaches will help him through the script, get him into his mindset to where he could deliver the way that he does. And, when he told me that, I said, if Denzel Washington still has a coach at the level that he's at, who am I that I don't need a coach? And I will admit, initially, it took some humbling for me. I did not want to help initially because I felt like it was me saying that I don't have the skill set to perform,
Yeah.
and it took me to it took me to listen to what Kwame said, and it took me to look at other voice artists like you guys who are at a certain level that I wanted to get to say, obviously someone helped them to get there. There's no way they could have done that stuff themselves. And so and then some of the auditions and stuff I was getting, I was like, I really want to book this, but I don't know how to do this particular character. And so rather than fumble through it and send a bad audition, which is going to misrepresent my skill set, I said, let me find someone who can coach me through this script and help me to get to where I need to be with this. So it took humbling myself, honestly, to get to that point where I said, I need some help. I need a mentor. I need somebody that can coach me through this stuff.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do is misrepresent yourself. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not willing to get the help to bring that talent out, you're going to misrepresent yourself, and you might not get another chance.
Yeah, well, Michael Jordan, every Olympic athlete you've ever known, musicians, artists, so many people that get to the top, you hear them talking about, yeah, I had a coach. I mean, Michael Jordan had one the whole time. He had his own private coach, even when he was at the most elite level. He still had his private coach and the team's coaches and more, because these guys at the top of their game across so many genres, so many different things, they're all saying the same type of thing. There's other people that can help me get there. And sometimes we're all too close to ourselves to figure out what we need to improve. And, how's that worked for you? What has your best coaches brought out with your acting?
Is that a question or was that a statement?
No, that's a question for you.
Oh, say that again.
Yeah. So what of your favorite coaches brought out for you from an acting perspective that maybe on your own you would have not been as strong at? Wouldn't represented yourself as well as you're capable of?
The conversational pieces. And that might sound so simple to people, but really freaking struggled with conversations.
Say that again.
Conversational pieces.
We had a dropout on Zoom.
Oh, okay. I say without a doubt, it's the conversational pieces.
Okay.
That that may sound simple to other people, but for me, it was a struggle because I would look at a script and I'm like, people don't talk like this. You know, like, how do I make this? How do I say this in a conversational way without it sounding like I'm reading the script? You know, and so it took a lot of training and work, and also me listening to other people's work to get to a point to where I felt comfortable enough to do it and do it, you know, effectively. So, I mean, honestly, that was probably my biggest struggle. And that's something that I really needed help on. So I would say probably the thing that the coaches helped me with the most is doing conversational pieces because I just couldn't get there mentally.
And was there something that one of your coaches told you that helped unlock that in your head a little bit?
Yes, record yourself and listen to it. You know, when next time you're having a conversation with someone, just turn the recorder on and forget that it's there and have your conversation, and then go back and listen to it.
Oh, that's amazing.
That was one of the things I was told. And the other thing that I was told was don't read the script as it's a script. Read it as you are talking to a person about this product. Be enthused about it. How would you tell somebody about something that you're enthused about, that you enjoy? You wouldn't, you know, read it to them. You would tell them about it, you know? And so I guess one of the other hurdles I had is I was trying to sound like other people on TV. And I remember the coach was telling me they already have James Earl Jones. And matter of fact, it was Brent Allen Hagel who told me that. He said they already have James Earl Jones and they already have Dennis Haysbert. They don't have Eli Harris. Give them Eli Harris. They don't need another one of them. And that helped get me in the mindset of, okay, it's okay to talk, you know, and be myself. Because let's face it, a lot of times we're self-conscious about certain things because we know some words we may not pronounce as clearly as other people, or, you know, some people may have a lisp, or some people, you know, have a lot of plosives when they speak. So we're very self-conscious because we know those things that are our flaws.
Yeah. And now one thing that is, I would think, right in your wheelhouse, combining your experience as a martial artist as a kid and your voiceover and acting passions now, being the voice of UFC Fight Pass, that has to be just a really neat culmination of everything that you've kind of gone through in your life to this point, right?
Yes, it is so freaking awesome. And the thing that I love so much for doing for LFA, the Legacy Fighting Alliance, is they allow me to do it the way I want to. And that's why, like, every piece that I do with them, there's something different with each one of them.
Can you do one of those? This is not rehearsed. Can you do something that would show for people that wouldn't know what it even is? Something short? Can you think of something?
Oh man, I would have to pull up a script. If you give me a quick second, I could probably pull up something.
Go ahead.
Sure,
We'll pause this. You pull up a script.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Are we paused?
Yeah.
They're paused. I've paused it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just tell me when, when. All right, Eli. So I think there's some people that will have never heard you doing the cool stuff you're doing. So can you give us an example of what it'd be like if you had to do a session for, and what's it called? I know it's, Donnie, what's the term?
UFC Fight Pass.
Okay. I've seen you do it, but I just don't know what it's called. So give us an example of what that would be like if they give you a script.
All right. So one of the scripts, this was from the last one where they're doing in Brazil. So I do something like this because, like I said, each script I do is different. And there's a different energy I bring depending on the demographic of where they're at. So like with this one, it's expansion by creating a unique opportunity in Brazil that showcased the country's first fighting talent to the world. The promotion returned in March, increasing the tally to 35 LFA fights taking place on Brazilian soil. Now, the promotion will continue cultivating the Brazilian opportunity with a fourth-stacked event inside the country at LFA 132. So that's how I do. That's the energy that I brought to that one. Now, another one I may do it a little bit differently, like last summer,
The LFA began its international expansion by creating a unique opportunity in Brazil that showcased the country's finest fighting talent to the world. The promotion returned in March, increasing the tally to 35 LFA fights taking place on Brazilian soil. Now, the promotion will continue cultivating the Brazilian opportunity with a fourth stacked event inside the country at LFA 132.
Oh, that's awesome. So here's a question. Now, so you obviously have a different feel for different scripts and different situations and different demographics. How much prep time does it take you to prep something like that? Like you get a script. Is this something that you're doing? You've done so many of them that now you do it in 3 minutes and 5 minutes, or is this? Oh, I need to check something, and I could spend an hour researching. What is it? What's your norm?
With stuff like this, no, it doesn't take me any time at all. The only thing sometimes is like the names, which they'll phonetically spell it for me. So like submission ace Luan Lacerda. But the first time that I look at it, it looks like Loon. So I might be like submission ace Loon Lacerda. And it's like, oh, it's Luan. So those are the only things I tend to spend a little bit of time on because nobody wants their name mispronounced, especially for something for UFC. You know, but for pieces like this, it's I fall right into it. I go with the flow of what I feel. But other pieces, it depends. Especially video game stuff. If I have an idea that the characters are complex or have complex backgrounds, I may take a little bit of time, to research stuff that will help me get into the mindset of that character. So it really depends on what it is. Most things like this or the commercials I do, like the stuff I do for Icy Hot or Vistaprint and, things like that, it's pretty straightforward for me.
Yeah. By the way, so we'll make sure we show on screen all these logos for all these cool things you've done. I have a question. I'm going to preempt Donnie here. I have a question though. So if somebody's new and they wanted to be you, okay? So like you talk about Denzel. So now is your turn. What are you going to say to the young guy, the young gal who says, all right, I want to be like Eli. I want to do these commercials. Maybe they don't want to do the fight ones, but they want Icy Hot and they want to do all this other cool stuff. What if you were starting over today, what advice would you give them?
The first thing I would say is don't take any shortcuts. You definitely have to invest to be in this. And I think that's one of the misconceptions that a lot of people come into this business have is they think, they could just buy a microphone and plug it into a laptop and boom, I can record. No, you really have to invest in having properly treated spaces like you and Donnie has, like what I have. It's not cheap. You have to invest in having proper equipment. I have the Sennheiser MKH 416 here, and I have the Neumann, if I'm pronouncing it right, TLM 103. This stuff costs money. Then I have my preamp, which is I still use, believe it or not, I still use my PreSonus Audio Box i2. It hasn't failed me yet. I have my laptop, I have my software. I would say definitely invest in your equipment and properly treated sound space. Because even if you have a great mic setup, if your space isn't treated properly, you're gonna sound like garbage.
Yeah.
And I think, people are told a lot that they have this voice and, they should be doing video. To me, and I might be wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong, our voice is only 10, 15% of this business. Because there's a lot of people who have a voice, a great voice, a unique voice, a different voice. Can you take direction? Can you interpret script for your clients? Do you have the proper setup so that your recordings sound good? Is your space properly treated so that you don't have noise floor noise and all that stuff? So I would tell a person coming into this, invest in your equipment, invest in having your space treated. Hire someone like Don to deal with your equipment or an Uncle Roy who specializes in space treatments that can get you sounding right. It's going to take money. That's one of the first things I would say. Secondly, I would say you really need to train and practice a lot. Definitely watch shows and stuff that you're interested in. Like if my goal is to do promo work and I want to cut movie trailers, I'm gonna watch a ton of movie trailers to listen. One of the mistakes I made when I first got into this, and I remember I was talking to Dave Fennoy about it. I remember I was listening to what's those commercials with oh gosh, what's her name? The AT&T commercials. And it sounded kind of bland and just average to me. And I remember telling Dave, like, it sounds uninteresting and Dave said, well, one thing you have to learn about this business is if what you're hearing on TV and you're hearing it consistently, it's what they're listening for. So whether if you think it should sound different or not doesn't matter. He said, if this is what's on TV and what's current right now, that's what they're going for. So if they're going for a person who just sounds like an average everyday person instead of your Don LaFontaine, they don't want Don LaFontaine. They want that average everyday sound. And I said, okay. So that's something that I had to get in the mindset of is listen to what's current and what's working. And that's what you work towards. So you know what I'm saying? If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. But here's something else. Half the people listening to you won't know who Dave Fennoy is. Dave Fennoy is just a phenomenal voiceover guy who's been in this business for a long time. And what I find most fascinating about this is you were smart enough to go, okay, there's somebody that I admire, I appreciate, and somehow I'm going to get in contact with him, and I'm going to talk to him about what should I do, what shouldn't I do. You were actually smart enough to be making the right connections and working your way to where you could talk to somebody like that. And a lot of people are just saying, well, my mom says I have a nice voice. Yeah, okay.
And Dave took time out of his schedule because I remember when I first reached out to him, I'm like, there's no way this dude's going to talk to me because he's busy all the time. And he had messaged me back and said, give me an hour and I'll call you. And he called me in an hour. And we spent about a good 45 minutes on the phone just going over things. The same thing with Anthony Pica. Because, Anthony to me is great with self-marketing. And, I reached out to him and he hit me back and said, give me about 30 minutes or so and we can go over some things. He took time out to talk to me, and that's the thing I will say about VO that I find a bit better than on the on-camera side is that, there are always going to be people with shenanigans no matter where you're at. But VO seems to be the more welcoming that people are willing to help you, give you advice, steer you in the right direction of where you need to go so that you can be successful.
Yeah. I don't think VO is an interesting thing in that because we do have that minor component, which is our voice, especially in the beginning. If I'm talking to a world-famous female coach, I'm no competition to her. And if I'm talking with the best male coach in the world, he's looking at me going, all right, well, Don needs 500 or 400 years before his acting would be at the point that would be competitive with me. So it's different if we were going to be competing next week, but they know that first off, if I were to ever get to the point where I'm competing with you, will never happen, our unique voices, but we're talking 5 to 10 years. And by that time, okay, I would have had to have gone through all the stuff that you went through to earn my way. And you have decades of acting experience. And so they're not worried about me competing with them. And so it's easier. I do think it's easier in this business to be nice to everybody because we're not going to be direct competitors anytime soon. And if you get there, I'll respect the fact that Eli put in the work to be there. So, hey, hats off to him because I just love anybody that's succeeding, whether they're a competitor or whether they're not. It's about, okay, that gal has done her homework. You've done your homework. It's amazing what happens with people 5 years from now who start off without doing a lot, but then pay attention.
And I think people have to understand that the game has changed. And I should have mentioned it was Nancy Wolfson who had helped me with the conversational pieces. And I don't know if anyone's ever had a chance to work with her, but her direct approach is just one of those things where it makes sense. Like it's very straightforward and it's very direct, but it makes sense. It's like a kick in the pants type of way that she does it, but it makes sense. And then I think the other thing I would probably tell a person that's coming in is to understand that this game is always changing. Even with me only having been in it for 3 years, it is so much different now than it was 3 years ago getting into this because now everybody's trying to get into it. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's a lot more difficult, I think, now to get into it than it was then. I've had clients that will email me and ask me, respectfully, is voiceover the only part of the business where people are always emailing you? Because they get hammered with emails all the time, So I think that with the way things are now, and I understand that there are varying opinions on how to do VO. I don't see anything wrong with doing, some of the pay for plays. I just don't. Because
Right.
there is a lot of work on there,
Yeah.
whether it's Voices123, Voices.com, however people may feel about that.
Yeah.
There's Fiverr out there, which of course is not the most favorable word
Right.
in our industry. There's, Upwork. There's different avenues of where you can get work and find good clients that will become, that consistent client that you'll work with. So I would say don't be afraid to try some of those things because you're not going to land that agent you want to land right out the gate. Oh,
Right.
that's the other thing. And I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier. Get a solid demo produced. Don't produce your own demo. Get someone who knows what they're doing that can write a script that is tailored for your skill set and produce you a solid commercial demo. And I was trying to get like the video game demos put together and promo demo together. And what I found that a lot of your work gets booked off your commercial. Video game demos, animation, they still will listen to your commercial demo.
You mentioned some of your earlier stuff. When you listened back to it today, you didn't think it was very good. Is that what I remember?
Yes, it was awful.
But here's the funny thing. You are like every other artist that I've ever run into, that we listened back to something. I have recordings of me as a young guy playing drums and horrible, horrible, horrible. I mean, just embarrassing. But I don't think that if I waited until I was good at everything or anything, I would never do it. I'd just sit as a blob in front of watch Netflix. So would you advise young people younger in the business, not young people, but they just need to do some stuff and not get so caught up in our head about, oh, is this great? Is this not great? I do think some experience sure helps, even if it's not. I mean, you had a period where you thought you weren't very good. I'll bet others thought you were great, though, by the way. What is
Well,
that correct?
I don't know. Like I said, the file I found was in 2010, and I completely forgot about this because the person who sent it to me was an on-camera agent, and they thought it would be good for me to just try an audition for a commercial, and I completely forgot about it. I wasn't even going for VO at that time, so I did it the best way that I knew how at that time.
Cool.
So I can't count that as me doing VO at the time because I really wasn't trying to. It
Yeah.
was just something that the agent had tossed my way to say, "Hey, try this."
Yeah.
But I would definitely say that if it's something that you want to do,
Mhm.
then yes, go and do it, and take the necessary steps to learn it so that you can be good at it.
Yeah.
Like you'll hear some people say, "I want to do VO because it seems like something fun to do, or it's a hobby or a side hustle." To me, if you view it that way, you're not going to be good at it. That's just my personal opinion. If I'm viewing something as a side hustle, I might as well do DoorDash. You know what I mean? And it's no disrespect to anyone who does DoorDash, but if you go into it with that mindset, that means that you're not going to put forth 110% to be the best at it. It's just something you're taking a stab at and hope that it sticks.
Right.
So to me, either you're fully in this business as a career or you're not. That's just
Okay.
my personal opinion. I may
Yeah.
be wrong. There may be people who don't agree with that, but I don't see how you could put 110% in something that you're not fully invested in doing. And I think something that you said earlier in regards to a minor component of us as far as doing a voiceover, I feel that we're also a major part of the business that gets severely underappreciated. You'll have people that you'll have your Ving Rhames and you'll have, Tom Hanks and those people who will get all the accolades for the VO work that they do. But it's people like us who really keep the engine moving in businesses. So we're basically to me, we're the heart and soul and the pulse of projects, but we don't get the recognition for it like we should. I just
Yeah.
thought I'd put that out there. So
Yeah.
for anyone that's coming into this business, look at VO as you being the heart and soul and the pulse of a project. How would you treat your heart? How do you treat your soul? How do you treat your pulse? Do you partially take care of it? Or are you gonna put 110% in it to make sure that you are fully healthy? So I know when I do a project, I want to make sure that when I do my project for my clients, there's no doubt they're going to come back to me again because I breathe life into what their product is or what their show is.
Yeah, I love all that, Eli, and really appreciate you being with us here today. Tell us where people can find you online. I know you have a website, you're on social media, you're pretty active. So tell people where they can track you down.
Sure. My website is IamEliHarris.com. My Instagram is Mr.Eli.Harris. My Twitter is Eli_Harris. And my LinkedIn is I am Eli Harris. I believe that's how I have it on there.
Nice.
I'm not hard to find on there, though.
Yeah.
And if you Google me, and then one thing is really important is make sure your SEO is strong. The person who runs my website and does all my stuff, if you type in Eli Harris, IMDb is the only thing that comes up in front of me. And you'll never beat out IMDb because it's an Amazon company and, but my website comes up under that and then, LinkedIn and all that. So, yes, make sure you have a good website and make sure that your SEO is strong.
Cool.
Love it.
You're awesome. You're awesome. I think if people understood more about how much you have done and how much you've accomplished, they would be just totally wild. So I'm happy we've had some time with you here. And the thing that I'm disappointed with, but is a normal thing, is you've only given us a little tiny glimpse of all the cool stuff you've done and the great stuff you've already accomplished. And I just suspect there's a whole lot more to come over the next 10, 20 years. So it'll be a blast to follow with you. Follow along with what you're doing, keep up with you, and we'll have you back someday. But really super happy you joined us.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, I really appreciate both of you guys because both of you have always taken time out to help us when we need it. I remember I was in the panic mode. I can't remember what it was that happened on Studio One. And I reached out to Donnie and he said, hit my dad up. And so I hit you up and told you what the problem. Do you remember what the problem was? Because it was driving me freaking crazy. And you took time out, didn't even charge me for it. And you took, I think, like a good 30 minutes to work with me to have the issue solved and then told me what I needed to do to prevent it from happening again. And I can't remember exactly what the problem was, but it was driving me crazy. But you didn't say, okay, it's going to be $100 for me to troubleshoot or whatever. You just got on and said, gave me a time. We got on, went through it together. You shared your screen. And I mean, I'm so grateful to you for doing that because you did not have to do that.
Like you got to pay it forward. I have had some of the best mentors in life across the range of things. I've had so many people. I grew up really poor, single mom. We would break down on the road at certain points and people would stop and help us. And she didn't even know to put oil in the car, just to give you a perspective of we would drive until the car stopped and then she would figure it out. So over a lifetime of helping, I love paying it back just like you do. So many other people in this business. And it's just a joy to see somebody else like you who continues to succeed, who is inspiring others and making great things happen in the voiceover world. So, Donnie?
Yeah. Hey, we appreciate it, Eli. Again, thanks so much for being here and continued success.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Donnie and Don.
As always, we'll see you on the wires.